Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. This week we're going to take a look at two organizations doing good works in Kingston and Ulster County. Later in the show we'll talk with Diane Reeder of the Queens Galley, a group that helps feed the hungry in Kingston. And right now we're joined by Michael Berg, the Executive Director of Family of Woodstock. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Jimmy. Nice to be here.
Family of Woodstock is the name that evolved out of that town, but it's you go beyond the borders of Woodstock these days, and a lot of people just refer to you as family.
Yes.
Tell me about the evolution of that.
Well, when we started in Woodstock. It was as a result of the impact in the town of the festival that happened 115 miles away. But it's strange to say, but afterward, for upwards of 5 years, town would get inundated with young people looking for Bob Dylan and the Woodstock Nation. Sounds strange now, but it was true. And so we started. We didn't expect to create an organization. We were just a group of people responding to the needs of the town, not satisfied with the police response, which was the only alternative. Young people were being arrested for sleeping on people's lawns, skinny dipping. There was a lot of psychedelic use. And so family started just to respond, thinking that at the end of the summer we would stop and go back to being our sleepy little town. But it didn't happen that way, and family grew.
It had an interesting name in its outset. It wasn't Family of Woodstock. It was called a very hippie-like name, Soft Machine Landing.
Well, it's the Soft Landing Machine,
oh,
yes. It's a soft landing machine, and that's how I got involved in family. Was when I heard about it, I said, that's really important stuff. I have to do this. The soft landing machine at its height was 8 people that committed that they would handle any drug emergency that came over the countywide hotline or the walk-in center. And most of that at that time was psychedelics. There was some heroin use, and there was people that were very skilled and knew how to talk people down. And
hence,
I had some
hence
experience.
the soft landing, right?
Hence the soft landing,
right.
And that's how I got involved in family.
How did it grow from that to what it does today?
Well, our expectation was, once we realized that we were going to continue and be an organization, our expectation was that we'll let people tell us what they need, and then we'll explore with them the options that they have and send them to the people that do this work. But we found there were huge, in the 70s, there were huge gaps in service. So as we ran into places where we didn't have any resources to send people to, we tried to create them. And the agency's been very successful at that. And I think the largest reason for that is that it's not theoretical. When we write a grant, we say, if we had this service last year, we would have served 90 people that needed it. So it's like, if you give us the money, we know we have the clients. We're ready to help with that. And so that's a powerful approach.
So what programs, can you highlight the programs that you offer now? I mean,
Sure.
You've gone from talking people down from bad trips to a variety of programs.
Sure.
Can you highlight some of them?
Sure. I would say that we are a lead or the lead agency in our county in homeless services, in domestic violence services, in adolescent services, in emergency services, and we're the Child Care Council. So that's a very broad scope. And it comes from the fact that as quality people came to our agency and wanted to do things that really were important to them, we said, let's do it. Instead of saying, oh, no, we don't do that. We said, well, yeah, we could train people how to take care of children. Yeah, from the beginning, we were doing emergency shelter. And initially, it was extremely, I mean, in the early 70s, there was no survival issues, and people weren't afraid. So I remember saying, oh, you're home, come, I'll put you up in my house. Well, that got tired after, old after a while, and then we started calling people. And I'm embarrassed to say, but we would call the same person every night till they said no. And then we would burn them out, we'd go to the next person. But ultimately, we tried to establish programs. And from 1972 on, when the county closed the county home in New Paltz, we've been the only provider of emergency shelter in the county. We now have a shelter for 27 beds for homeless families, a shelter for 19 beds called the Darmstadt Shelter that serves single individuals primarily in recovery. We have a domestic violence shelter. We have a runaway shelter. And we opened 2 programs called Midway that are transitional living programs for homeless adolescents, 16 to 21, that have no family resources. And that's a tough population, but a very important one.
When we come back, Michael, let's talk about funding and how you guys manage to raise funds and keep these programs going.
Great, I'd love to do that.
You're watching Kingston Now. More with Michael Berg of Family of Woodstock when we return. Welcome back to Kingston Now. With us again is the Executive Director of Family of Woodstock, Michael Berg. And during the break, we were talking, Michael, about the name Family of Woodstock and how it became that from Soft Landing Machine. Can you tell that story?
Well, Family of Woodstock came about because we were in Woodstock. That was where we started, and family was was what we were trying to be to people that needed it. But over time, we opened offices in Ellenville and in New Paltz, and then we have major facilities in Kingston.
Your headquarters are here in Kingston.
Yeah, my headquarters are now here in Kingston. Although the agency still revolves around the walk-in centers and the 24-hour hotline. But in any case, we decided, well, you know, the family of Ellenville felt slighted. What do you mean, Family of Woodstock? So we decided that we would go for Family Inc., that it would be broader. And we approached the state, and they wouldn't give it to us. It was too generic. And so then we talked about Family of Ulster County, but it had no pizzazz. And what we ultimately came to, and what we've tried to sell to the rest of the agency, is that Family of Woodstock, the Woodstock doesn't represent the location. It represents the conception that Woodstock, the event, had of community, of sharing, of being together. And so that's really what the name means now.
Those were golden days coming out of the late 60s and
we never
early
knew
70s.
That, though.
Right.
You know, in hindsight, you say, those were the golden age. But at the time, we didn't know that.
But what's really interesting about Family of Woodstock is that there were all these great ideals and great plans for what was going to happen to the society, and this is really an illustration of that in action. You know, a lot of those people went on to different things. Maybe they became more corporate or became lawyers.
Sure.
But Family of Woodstock has carried that sort of hippie ideal forward here to 2012, which is extraordinary.
Well, you know, the values that we started with were the most important thing, and we have really tried to maintain those values. And those values are very simple. We do not tell people what to do. We do not burden people with our judgments of them. And we keep their stuff confidential. And as long as we follow those principles, one other thing, we allow people to tell their story in whatever length they need to. You know, and we train people 1,000 ways to say, and how are you feeling now about that? And what's going on for you? And when that happened, what did you know, and just to bring them out. And so a person might take 20 minutes on the phone to tell you their whole story. And at the end of it, it's remarkable. And it's happened to me many times when I've been on the hotline, that people trust you in a way that it's like you're long lost, you're their friend for life, because you allowed them the courtesy to tell their story without interrupting them, without saying, that was stupid, or how could you have done that, or why don't you do this, or let me tell you what to do. All of that stuff just closes people down.
Or even the indifference of some of the social service people.
Sure.
Yeah.
The other thing about family is we have no single catchment. We don't have guidelines that you can't ask us that. Our motto is any problem under the sun. Not meaning that we do everything, but that we would never say to somebody, you made a mistake calling family. Our vision is that we will let the people tell us what they need, that we'll help them identify their options, and then we'll help them to access whatever resources are available. And it's really worked.
With 9 properties that you own and all these programs that you administer, how do you raise the money?
Well, the community is incredibly generous, and we've been very fortunate, and over time we've been recognized for who we are and what we do. Initially we were controversial, who are those hippies in Woodstock, but over time people have recognized that we're there. We're consistently helping. We always put the client ahead of our needs, and those are important values. About 70% of our money comes from federal and state grants, and we're grant writers, and we're very competitive. We've been very successful, although now it's getting harder and harder. But beyond that, we get United Way money, and United Way's been a great ally to us and a help. We get a lot of money from the community, and we get over $1 million a year in contributions of people's time, volunteer time, and stuff that they give us. They give us housewares and furniture and food that we distribute all over the community.
And those donations can be made at the walk-in centers.
At any of the walk-in centers.
You've been with the organization for over 40 years. You've been the executive director for over 30. How has it affected you personally to be involved with family?
Well, I've never, this is a life work, and it's a great accomplishment. I'm very proud of the agency. I've worked with fabulous people that give of themselves every day. And that's the joy.
Michael, thanks for coming today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Jimmy.
You bet. This is Kingston Now. Next, we're joined by Diane Reader of the Queens Galley, an organization fighting food insecurity in Kingston, and we'll tell you what that means next. You're watching Kingston Now. The Queens Galley is a nonprofit group in Kingston dedicating to fighting hunger here. Here to tell us more is Executive Director Diane Reader. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
Now, going into the break, I used the term food insecurity, and that's a new term for me. It's not just being hungry, it's more than that. Can you explain that?
It is. It's actually a term that was coined in the 1980s, and we're just seeing more and more of it now. It's when a household or an individual can't access wholesome or nutritious food in socially acceptable ways at all times.
Elaborate a little bit on that.
So that means that some households can't go into a grocery store or farmer's market and buy the apple that they want.
It's that simple?
It's that simple. Being able to purchase lean proteins, whole grains, fresh produce in the quantities that you need to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Because it also conjured up images for me of people who deal with hunger on a daily basis. And it's extraordinary to think that hunger is still such an issue, not only in Kingston, but in America, given the wealth of the nation. But food insecurity seems to also imply that people are always worried about where their next meal literally is coming from.
There are people and households that deal with different levels of food insecurity. So we have somebody who may be mildly food insecure. This is somebody that on the horizon they believe there may be something financially challenging coming up. So maybe they're reducing the quality of the food they're buying. If they're used to maybe buying organic food, maybe not so much organics now, and they'll be buying more things on sale. And then we get into the more food insecure households, or the very food insecure household, and who can't afford to go into a grocery store at all, and then they're relying on food stamps or food pantries or soup kitchens for their food.
The Queens Galley is a physical location. It's on Washington Avenue here in Kingston.
Yeah.
And you feed hungry people on a daily basis.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day of the year. We never close.
When did the Queens Galley get started?
The organization started in 2003. I had started teaching some WIC families how to stretch their food dollar. Basically, how to take those food supplemental items that WIC gives you and how to make dinner, lunch, breakfast, whatever from those things. And when we started doing those classes on a regular basis out of a regular kitchen at Washington Manor, I bartered for space. So we found that we had some food left over. And my background, my dad was Roman Catholic, my mother is Italian, I was raised by a Jewish stepmother. I have no choice but to feed people. So when we had leftover food after these classes, give it away, right? It makes a lot of sense. So word got out pretty quickly that, hey, if you happen to be in that neighborhood at that time, if you go in, there's going to be something really interesting for lunch. And then it was breakfast and lunch, and then breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
How many meals a day, week, year? Do you have an idea that
you're
providing?
Yeah, we actually keep count. So we don't actually ask people to fill out any forms. There's never a requirement to prove that you're poor enough. There's no means test. But we do count the number of people that come in. And when we first started this accident, it was 1,200 meals a month. And now we're regularly over 9,500. And in September, the month following Hurricane Irene, we served over 13,000 meals.
Is the increase in number of meals you serve because people are more aware that they can come get a meal without judgment at the Queens Galley, or is it because things have gotten a little bit worse?
I think both. I think it's the being aware that you can come in if you're just having a temporary struggle, that maybe, okay, I need a little bit of help this week, just a little bit, and they can come in. And there are more people that have just realized, oh, well, there's the soup kitchen that's there and we can go in. And there are other people that realize that the food is good. That my favorite, I guess the anecdote to that, the story, a grandmother came in with her granddaughter and they're wearing these big hats. You know, those like, it's Sunday in the South, I'm going to church, I'm gonna get the biggest hat I can find with the biggest flower on the side. And they're all dressed up, and Grandma explained that it was the little girl's birthday. and she got to go to her favorite restaurant. So I expected that they were telling me that they were on their way to their favorite restaurant, not realizing that we were her favorite restaurant.
What is a day like at Queens Galley? When does it? Because breakfast starts at 7 and
Right, so
dinner
our chef
ends at
gets in at
7, right?
6.
At night.
Our chef gets in at 6, and then the opening team starts getting things ready for breakfast. And depending on what donations have come in, or what we've been able to purchase, or what food is available, then our menu changes daily. And everything is made from scratch. So let's see, on a cold January morning, we're probably going to see steel-cut oatmeal. We might see eggs on the table. We have some chickens that are fostered family out at the Forsyth Nature Center. So in the cold weather, they don't produce as many eggs. So we see a few things there. But lunch is made right after dinner is served, and then as soon as we're done with lunch, we make dinner.
Feeding the hungry is not all that the Queens Galley does these days. Let's talk about what you do in addition to that when we come back.
Sure.
Kingston Now continues in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to Kingston Now. We've been talking with Diane Reader about the Queens Galley, an organization that provides awareness, education, relief, and prevention of food insecurity in Kingston. And with us again is Executive Director Diane Reader. Diane, we've covered some of that hunger and food insecurity stuff. What else does the Queens Galley do?
Well, we concentrate primarily on child hunger. So we know that if somebody's hungry today, we feed them today. Basically, you think about it, if you're hungry, you can't focus, right? So we take care of that immediate need, but then what happens beyond that? So this is where the education component comes in. And I know you and Michael had talked about earlier the teaching a man to fish. So if we carry that a little bit further, you know, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach him to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. If you teach him to prepare the fish tastefully and affordably, I believe he'll feed his neighbor. So that's where Cooking Matters comes in. We're a partner with Share Our Strength, a national organization. And the curricula, we do hands-on culinary nutrition education. And it's from the chef's perspective, being able to teach people about food, where it comes from, how it gets to us, how to choose it, how to choose a raw ingredient, how to prepare it, and sometimes even how to preserve it. So if we can connect people to community gardens, or teach them how to grow things in container gardens, then by producing their own food and then teaching them how to cook it or preserve it, we give them tools that they have to eat better for themselves without needing to the soup kitchen.
So not only are they being fed, and not only are they learning how to cook for themselves, they're learning how to bring that out into the community. Terrific.
And then the classes break up as far as age groups. So for a child, when I'm teaching groups of children around 8 to 10 years old, the message that I want to get across to them is how to make a choice, a better choice, when they're faced with the opportunity to make a choice. So if they're faced with an apple Pop-Tart, how do they know which one is going to be best? And we tell them, look at the food and ask it one question. Do you remember where you were born? If your food can remember where it was born, chances are it's going to be the better health choice. So that apple can remember hanging on the tree, the apple Pop-Tart, not so much.
I wasn't born. I was sort of created in a lab somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Manufactured.
Yeah, exactly.
For a teenager, especially teenage girls, there are so many myths revolving around foods and fats, and what's a trans fat, what's a saturated fat, what's a good fat. So instead of just shooting more nutrition information at them, really breaking it down to things that they can understand. And when they're faced with, again, making a food choice, looking at those labels, that sometimes the best food doesn't have a label. And if you think about it, you go into the grocery store, the better food choices don't have a nutrition facts label on it. They don't need it. Again, you know, the apple doesn't have one of those labels. They have one of those great stickers, and the really great sticker has Pride of New York in it. For an adult, it's a different story. Adults, they're going to be happy that the 8-year-old is choosing the apple over the Pop-Tart. They're going to be thrilled that the teenager knows the difference between a saturated fat and a non-saturated fat. But a single mom, what she wants to know, how do I afford to put this on my table? So for the adult classes, there's a really high focus on the economics of food. How do I go into a grocery store and come out with my dignity and some of my money intact? Being able to navigate that. So part of the classes that we teach for the adults are how to shop, how to budget, how to prepare a grocery list, and how to get through the grocery store and put food on the table at the same time.
That actually is such a great idea that it shouldn't, you know, it doesn't have to only apply to people in situations like this. Everyone should be learning this. Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. We've had people that have called that have asked us to do this, and we do, and it's something that I enjoy doing. And we have a great rapport with our local grocery stores. In fact, ShopRite, we've teamed up with them that we now do Cooking Matters classes in the grocery store. So we've got kids that are cooking. So if you walk in and there's smells of food being cooked, chances are it's a Cooking Matters class.
And I assume you can walk down the aisles and point things out and say, don't look for this, look for that, don't do that.
We do, and some of the grocery store tour, the big part of it comes in the produce department, because there's so much hidden information in those PLU labels and those little stickers. And a great one for food trivia. The kids especially like to know about the secret numbers on the side of the egg carton. And they have fun with the classes, and they learn something after every class.
Terrific. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's it for this week's show. Our thanks to Michael Berg of Family of Woodstock. For more information about them and to find out about employment and volunteer opportunities, go to familyofwoodstockinc.org or find them on Facebook. Our thanks also to Diane Reader of the Queens Galley. To find out how you can donate your time or money to them, go to queensgalley.org, and they're on Facebook too. In fact, we're on Facebook now. You can find out our show information on our page, get the link to our new YouTube channel, and post suggestions for future shows. Like us now and recommend us to your friends. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. We'll see you next time.